Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind podcast. This week's show, we're going to do essentially the beginning of our ADCC 2022 coverage. Zach and I are going to sit down, talk about some matchups that we're looking forward to in the divisions, and we're also going to preview Fury Grappling, I think 3 or 4 at this point. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host.
Zach.
How you doing, Zach?
Pretty tired, but doing well.
So we'll talk about this in the outro, but Zach and I just spent the weekend, really like a 3-day weekend in Omaha, Nebraska, training with John Hansen. John Hansen, the 2021 first East Coast trials for ADCC for the U.S. He is
East Coast Trials winner.
Yeah, Trials winner at plus 99. Zach, we're running on about 15 hours of sleep for the last couple of days and like multiple training sessions, and it was a very tough room. Great experience. I got a couple of hours of footage, long interviews with John. That'll all come out post ADCC. John's working on some really nifty stuff, and very, very excited to see what it looks like come ADCC time. Very, very fun trip, but absolutely exhausting trip.
Very tiring.
We left Friday morning at 5 a.m., and we got to Nebraska in the morning at like 11. We trained for a couple of hours, and then did some other stuff. Next morning, early, got to training, trained for 3 and a half, 4 hours.
If you include the like sitting around and talking bits of it.
4 hours.
3 hours.
And then woke up at 6 in the morning on Sunday. And then John and I did interviews for probably close to 3 hours to do like a bunch of interview work and like some asked John some questions, and he gave some great answers that I cannot wait to edit up and like put out after ADCC. And then we trained kind of at 6 in the morning and then trained at 7 until essentially like an hour before we had to fly out, and then flew back to Baltimore.
We trained long enough that I was concerned about missing our flight. We made it. But,
we did make it, but we were going through TSA, and Zach was like, "We're getting kind of close." So it was
squeezed everything out of the trip that we could. John's one of the most humble and gracious people in the entire sport. And learned an incredible amount there with him.
Absolutely great trip. I have a ton of editing work to do, but we'll talk about that more in the outro. But that if we seem a little bit sleepy and tired, that's the reason. As a caveat today for the show, we're basically this begins. I said it. We don't have a ton of news this week because Zach and I are fried. We have some replacements for ADCC.
Yep.
Today is a very rare show for us. This is us as fans. This is like, hey.
As a caveat, as we get closer to ADCC, a lot of these guys don't really want to be competing on a world stage. A lot of the best guys in the world are competing at ADCC.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks out. Right now.
We won't always have a ton of professional events going on because a lot of the guys are already winding down or getting ready for ADCC. So this week we decided to be fanboys on the air. And just talk about what we're excited to see as fans more than as commentators, I think.
That being said, you can follow us at grappling_rewind on Instagram. If we talk about a matchup that we want to see that we forgot happened, let us know.
Or is never going to happen in a million years based on ADCC bracketing or whatever,
So let's get into that first. So let's move into the show this week. As a rule for ADCC, so this is kind of matchups that we want to see. Realistically, we're not going to see a lot of these matchups. ADCC has some rules for how they do bracketing. If you don't know, ADCC's pretty much hard. The only technical rule they have is teammates must fight at latest in the second round.
Yep.
So if you have 3 teammates in a bracket, 2 guys are essentially going to have to face each other in the first round because you can't have 3 of them on opposite sides.
And then if the third wins, then the third and whoever won the 1 and 2 meet in second round. So then there are no teammates going into third round.
Essentially in day 2.
Yeah.
Like every teammate fights. And we see this pretty frequently. Atos runs into this problem.
Yep.
B team was going to run into this problem. Actually, a bunch of teams. Planet runs into this problem frequently. Like Gracie Bada is running into this team, running into this problem. So we have some of those matchups that we're going to talk about. That is the first rule of ADCC. ADCC, you right there, Zach?
Yep.
Moving around the mic.
Just a little.
ADCC also does not like to have rematches that were done under ADCC rules unless they are finals. As a second caveat, if you had a recent rematch, they will try to not bracket them close together.
A recent match.
Yes, a recent match. The ADCC doesn't like rematches unless they're in the finals, and ADCC doesn't like to see guys that have faced each other just in general in other rule sets as sort of a third parameter. Mo has also talked about, the event organizer and coordinator for ADCC 2019 and 2022, that they are looking to make exciting and fun matchups. So that will play. There's a seeding element, and there is also a matchup guys want to see. It's partially why he put Nick Rodriguez versus Muhammad Ali in the first round of 2019. It was like, this is a matchup that is going to get everyone hype. That was the first match on the mat in 2019. They are not against putting on a real good show with some exciting matchups.
Yep.
So that being said, this is Zach and I going in sort of as a fan for matchups we want to see, not necessarily looking for how things are going to be bracketed or what makes the most sense. We did a little bit of a pre-show and tried to pull through some of the thoughts we had to make sure there weren't like some rematches that we're forgetting about. But if we do, feel free to shoot us a DM and follow us as we kind of begin our ramp up into ADCC 2022 coverage.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of shows like this at ADCC that are very, very tired. But I cannot wait. We have a bunch of folks from the team going to ADCC, and I'm this trip has like begun me being okay with getting excited like I do for ADCC. Where do you want to kick it off? Do you want to kick it off with men's under 66, or do you want to kick it off with another division?
I think start men's under 66 and work our way up to the important ones.
So again, the matchups that we are excited for. So this division is fun. So I'm going to give some history because I really enjoy the history of these things. Zach is not as amped as much of the history. He kind of wants to talk about matchups, but what are you going to do, Zach?
Go history.
I run the show sometimes.
Do it.
We don't have the champion in this division returning.
Yeah, well, that is interesting.
We have Augusto Tinquinho Mendez was like, I'm out, man.
We also don't have third place returning.
Paulo Miao is like, hey, man, I'm retired as well. So we only have Kennedy, who's a second place matchup in this. We also haven't seen a ton of Kennedy.
Yeah, not
super
recently.
We've seen him, off and on. This division is America versus Brazil for me. Those are the matchups I want to see. One matchup that we're going to see, probably, Keith Krikorian versus Gio Martinez.
Yeah, because they're teammates.
And coach.
Yes.
Now, technically, Keith is more under Boogie, but he has been in the room a ton with Gio and been coached by Gio. And you've seen him on the mat plenty of times on big events getting coached by Gio Martinez and Boogie.
And so this might be the two people in all of ADCC that have a chance of being against each other that know one another's game the best.
Absolutely.
Right. And so when that happens, this could either be a really interesting matchup. It's one we're almost definitely going to see because they are teammates, but these matchups go either way, either one of two ways. Either they're extremely exciting because you have both people trying to exploit the holes in the other's game that they know exist, or they're incredibly boring because you have both people playing reserved and defending against the other people's strengths. And so given that these two, how these two normally play, I don't see the latter happening. I see this being more each of them really trying to exploit weaknesses, and I see it end up being an exciting match because I think especially Keith's hungry right now for ADCC, and I don't see him.
You don't get to the finals of 4 trials in a row and then finally win the 4th without being a different kind of dude.
And that dude does not, after 4 damn trials in a row, that dude does not want to get kicked out first round
or second round by his teammates. So this is a matchup that if both guys make it past the first round, we will see in the second round. Yeah. This is one of a couple matches.
We could also see it first round too, right? Based on the way that they bracket, or will they always try to make it second?
They will. Mo. That's one of the things Mo changed for either 17 or 19. Is that teammates now meet second round? So basically, if there's an opportunity to not have the match, if one guy gets eliminated, they try to do that. So it's like you're not always killing your teammate in the first round. Sure. There's an opportunity for the match not to happen. With both of these guys, again, this is a rough division.
Yeah.
You have Gary Tonin going down from 77 into the mix. It's like, how does him versus Gio? I think that was an EBI match from like yesteryear. A long time ago. And Tonin took that.
And EBI has weird rules, especially relative to ADCC. Yes. So that
is an interesting matchup. That's a fun match to see. I'm very interested to see how that match goes. Another match I'm really interested to see is who are you going to put Abate against?
Yeah, and so I think one of the things I don't know who they pair him against initially, first round, second round, but the one that I want to see most, I think, might be AJ.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that is Cole, what we've seen of Cole so far, especially in Nogi, is he has tried to control the pace of the match, and when he's able to rein in control of the pace of the match, that's when he starts really generating some momentum. But until then, like, we've kind of seen him not necessarily on shaky
Agazarm's
ground.
back early and can kind of do what PJ Barch did.
Sure.
I think Agazarm is a guy that has been there. He's a silver medalist. Like, he's scrambly, he's tenacious, he's mean in a way that, like, both we kind of talked about in the pre-show a little bit. Like, is Cole ready for a guy that's going to be competitively that mean to him, where it's like the ref may have to step in an Agazarm match. Like, he's going to push you around. He's going to, like, and Abate in the room he's in at AOJ, I think probably ready for that with Guy and Hoffa.
I'm sure he's ready for that level of aggression, like, psychologically, but also his game seems to be, at least from what we've seen in his no-gi recently, and even some of his gi stuff, his game seems to be dependent on him controlling the pace, and it is extremely hard to control the pace against AJ. Just for everyone. The people that beat AJ with confidence are the people that, instead of trying to control the pace, match his pace or outpace him, which is crazy.
Which is what we saw, like, versus Barch and versus even, like, Tonin in Fight to Win, where it's, like, guys that run with him and, like, control him.
So that's an interesting matchup to me. Can Cole control the pace of that match? Can AJ outpace him? And then what happens in either of those scenarios?
Yep. Also, again, another guy that's kind of an X factor is fucking Ethan. Crownston looks like Thor.
How is that guy gonna be minus 66? I don't know if any of you have looked at his Instagram, but the guy looks like Hulk. Like, not Barbosa. I mean, like, Hulk.
He looks like Barbosa looked in 19 as a 66er.
Like, and I don't understand. Like, he's not that short either. Do we know how tall he is?
He's a little taller than me.
So, like, not super short. I don't know. How is that dude going to be minus 66?
Dude, he looks like a truck.
Yeah.
So that's like the dude that trains that. The guy in, like, and again, ADCC is a special beast. It is. I love ADCC being every other year. This one's a 3-year because guys can peak in a way that you almost can't do every year.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you can do that special, like, I'm only gonna get in this good a shape a couple times in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it's not guys that make a world's run every year and get in really good shape. This is like ADCC shape. There are 16 of us. I'm gonna do whatever it takes and push myself beyond that limit. Like, your first title fight is like that kind of shape when guys get into.
Yeah.
And Ethan looks like he's doing that with his wrestling and the combination of, like, his tenacity and that he's going to be fast and strong for the weight class.
The speed is the thing that I'm interested in because we're seeing him be huge. He's going to be strong. That's obvious. Ethan typically plays a very counter-oriented game. I mean, he's got some solid wrestling. We've seen that before. But if Ethan's playing on the top, once he hits the top, he's often playing this sort of counter leg lock game, and he's baiting people to come in underneath him because he wants to counter that.
I would love to see
into those
Ethan
positions
versus a guy like Kennedy.
Yes.
Like, can Kennedy replicate what Ty was able to do in the rematch?
Yeah.
Like, can Kennedy keep it close like Ty was able to do with Ethan? You know, and Ethan sort of reinvented himself after that second match. And we saw, like, a lot of new we've seen much more from him since that Cade match, and Cade is up weight classes now, and Ethan's still at 66.
And I think that the size differential is probably going to put, especially against Andre, right? I think the size differential with Ethan might really come into play there.
I think size versus a guy like Diego Hayes. Diego Hayes like a natural, not maybe rooster weight, light featherweight versus a guy even like Gio. Like, Gio's a big dude. Like, I'm curious to see how a guy like Pato fares in the division where he's definitely on the smaller end of, like, guys that are like Tonin cutting some serious weight to get down there. Cisneros, like, cutting a good amount of weight to get down there. He's another guy. Like, I would also love to see basically.
I think Cisneros Tonin is an incredible match because those two guys are constantly looking for subs. We've seen Cisneros up 10 points in a match and still just gunning for subs because that's what he likes to do.
Match. Like that, it's, again, Tonin, Cisneros, Krikorian, like, those are all guys, and even Ethan, like, that are just going to, like, hey, man, I don't care what's happening. I'm going to run with you. And, you don't want to run? I'm going to make us both run. So any of those guys together, I think, is a really fun match. Kennedy coming in with that target on his back as, you know, Cabrinha's son, Cabrinha bowing out in 2019 to let his son take the division.
And then him coming into second place.
But he's still the highest ranked guy in that division. Tonin is your first or second seed here behind Kennedy. Or sorry, in front of or behind Kennedy, depending on how you want to look at it. If there was a real X factor in, and we've seen rankings either way, that's why I mentioned it. I think Kennedy being the former silver medalist in the division,
that division.
you have to give it to him. But you can definitely make an argument that, Will
Sure.
Cone is bigger coming down. That is a match that I really want to see. I also would I'm interested to see how Pato looks against how either Pato, Fabricio Andre, or Gabriel Souza look against one of the other trials winners.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really good benchmarking. Like, they're really good. They're coming in. They're either invited or another trials winner. How do we see them? I think that's where that bracketing is going to fall. We're going to see, I think, the Brazilian wrestling come into play. And I'm very curious how the developments that kind of those guys have been making in Brazil kind of clash with the ADCC style wrestling. So that will be exciting. Do you have any thoughts on any other thoughts for who you want to see or stuff in the division?
I think we hit a lot of good ones there.
Yeah. So that will be fun. I'm excited as fuck. Under 77.
Yeah.
Any matchup you make in this division is fire.
Yeah. We have so many incredible people in this division.
That's the caveat of hey man, everything in 77 is fire.
We're going to miss a match that one of you out there think is the most exciting match. We're not going to talk about it because all of these matches are so exciting here.
DM me if I miss it. Be you didn't think of this match. You're right. I didn't think about that match because it's awesome.
Here we do have the returning champ in the bracket. JT Torres won 2019.
Second. Two-time champion. 2017 and 19.
Coming back for a third try. Any matchup with him is interesting. I think what we had talked about a little bit, though, are the matchups that I'm really excited to see with JT are the couple guys in here that are explosive and really, really push the pace moving forward. And
you mean everyone at 77, Zach?
Oh, well, I think that there's some standouts here, Andy Varela, PJ Barch, Dante Leon,
Canuto,
Davey Ramos. Okay, so I'm just going to name everyone.
Jimenez and Michael Galval.
Right.
Oh, you mean the rest of the division? Yeah,
sure.
Everyone in even Cade Rotolo and William Tackett. Kenta Yumoto.
No.
Fuck.
Okay. Yeah. Now you're just naming everyone.
No, but I'm saying
Cade's not someone that I'm going to be like, oh, you're going to come out there and really push the pace. He
absolutely
will once. I don't think he comes out aggressively pushing the pace. I think he lets the momentum build and then scrambles the hell out of everyone.
Did you see him fight Shin Aoki at 1FC?
Sure.
Homeboy came out ready to kill him.
Fair.
So this is a very interesting division for that reason, because all of these guys, save for probably Lepre, Ramos can start a little slow and then ramp up, and Langacker can start a little slow and ramp up, and Taza can start slow and ramp up. Everyone else comes out swinging.
That's true.
And so that, I think, makes for literal clash of styles here.
Honestly, the only one that doesn't so Oliver Taza, I don't know if he fits that mold exactly. I think he plays a more counter game often. I think JT plays a very control-oriented game, which is interesting against all of this explosion, right? And so I think the 77 weight class is sort of moving in this, and we see that in collegiate wrestling, right, or judo. The weight class in this range ends up being the explosive one. It's where you get all of these crazy highlights. You get that, and then heavyweight too sometimes, just because big guy fall hard, but
big guy fall hard.
Explosive, crazy scrambles and things like that you see in all of those other combat sports or grappling sports come in this weight class. And I think we're finally really starting to see that happen in no-gi jiu-jitsu, at least, where this weight class is the one where you're getting all of these guys that are incredible athletes. They're very fast and they're strong.
Other guy that actually doesn't push a crazy pace is Nicky Ryan.
No, he doesn't.
I thought about him as
at least, but we haven't seen a ton of him recently.
Well, he's coming off that injury, and it's how does that play into it?
So it'll be interesting to see JT in this division that's sort of moving, at least in my eyes, moving in that direction of more speed and explosion, as a guy who is classically, he's obviously an incredible athlete, but classically tries to play a paced and controlled style of game.
Or a kind of in the Tonin matches, a heavy counter game.
Yeah, sure.
Which is really interesting. So a matchup that I want to see that's a rude matchup, but it answers a lot of questions for me. And it's again, this is not how I think they'll be bracketed, but I want to see Jimenez versus Lachlan.
Yeah.
Because that is a style matchup nightmare for Jimenez.
Yeah.
And it's if Lachlan is gonna run in this division, he's going to do what he did in 2019 in the absolute, not in his division, but in the absolute, and he's going to heel hook his way up this bracket.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Or he's going to completely have reinvented his game, but that dude is a leg lock wizard, and I don't think much has changed in his wizardry, and still I think there's a large portion of the community that hasn't quite caught up still to where he is
at. Not to what he's been doing.
Right.
Because I think he's one of the guys that's been really pushing the pace still in the leg lock realm, right? I think a lot of the guys that really initiated that movement have moved on to other things.
Yeah, taking the bag. Yeah, doing other things. So that matchup is really interesting for me because it's like, has Jimenez made the adjustments to his game that he will need to be successful in ADCC?
Yep.
We see that shit first round. It'll answer a lot of questions like, boom, yep, he can stop Lachlan's game, or nope, you can still heel hook the guy.
Yeah.
So that's, again, it's an unfair matchup. I would kind of be like, they bracketed it that way, but it is a matchup that would answer a lot of questions for me about both where Lachlan is and simultaneously where Jimenez is in a way that I'm pretty interested in.
Yeah. I'd also really like to see Cade and Micah Galvao as two of the like sort of young guys coming into the division.
Your first ADCC,
right?
You're both trials winners. First North American trial winner for Cade, first South American trial winner for Micah. Both have been on tears. Micah has 2 wins. Sorry, no. 1 win, 1 loss over Ty. A gi win in Worlds for both of their first Worlds, and a who's number 1 loss. Who's number 1 loss to Ty. So the brother rematch for me is always fun. It's like, hey man, my brother couldn't beat you. My brother, you won with my brother. Like, it's time for I was gonna say younger brother, but twin brother to come in and like.
I also think stylistically it's an interesting matchup. Micah is someone that's going to push the pace. He's constantly moving forward, but he wants to play a top-heavy, controlled game. Like, he's not slow and controlled, but he wants to be on top, driving forward, passing. He's got that incredible mount game that he's been playing lately.
Yeah.
And then Cade, on the other hand, is the type of person that wants to develop scrambles.
Yes.
Right? He wants to create chaos, and then he wins off of that chaos so often. And so to have this, like, very scheduled strategy in Micah and this sort of like create chaos strategy in Cade makes for an interesting dynamic because it's one of those two has to win. They can't.
The interesting thing is like the where Micah is very successful is he will create very, very brief scrambles to new positions. And I'm curious to see if Cade can counterplay that in those very small spaces where Micah goes, hey, we're going to run for a second, picks up the pace, does a hip sway, can Cade run with him there? I think probably being the longer guy, we're going to have definitely size parity here, but both guys I think are pretty big for 77. So that's a really, really interesting matchup. You mentioned it on a pre-show, Lapri versus Ramos. So in all of our brackets, we have realistic like 2 old guard guys, and then a bunch of kind of new, not newer talent or like your champions there, and that would be a fun like legacy match to see. I doubt we see it because again, you don't typically put your old veterans against each other, but
that would be interesting.
I would like to see Ramos versus Canuto because it's going to be who can flying armbarist.
Sure, yeah.
And Canuto looks in like crazy shape right now.
Yeah, Canuto is looking crazy
like,
right
dude,
now.
him and Raquel, his wife.
Yeah.
Just like all of their postings are just like, look at how wild the shape we've gotten is. And it's just like, dude, that's what's like, today was them like back and forth on a treadmill. And I was just like, Jesus, they look in insane shape. And but that's why I love ADCC too. It's like you just look like I'll never get to as in shape as any of this division is right now.
Oh God, no.
It's been wild. I think Tommy Langacker has the opportunity to throw a wrench into someone's run.
He's always been that guy.
Yes.
In all of jiu-jitsu for the past, like in every realm of jiu-jitsu for the past 8 years, he's been the dude that
like
can
more
just
than that.
More maybe, yeah.
Since before the Gordon Ryan purple belt win, he's been that guy.
Yeah,
Like
that's
he
true.
will.
He
Tommy
can just
Langacker
ruin someone's day.
We'll just go, I got to sub you. Whoop, I subbed you. You're like, the fuck, Tommy Langacker?
And so like he also often struggles once he gets to like semifinals, finals. Like we've seen him have a hard time
The
there.
upper echelon guys go like, I'm just not going to get submitted, man.
Yeah, but he's also ruined those people in the early parts of the bracket.
Yeah.
Like, and he's also come out on top once or twice. I think that doesn't matter. But
he
won Euros, or I think
he's
recently.
won Euros definitely. But I'm trying.
like,
I don't think he's won. He doesn't have a Worlds win.
No,
but he may have a Nogi Worlds win. But I don't.
Either way,
know.
He's the kind of guy that has historically been able to ruin someone's day, and I can see him doing that here too.
I would love I love seeing that in ADCC where it's like the guy. I think a lot of guys are counting. He's a European trials winner. A lot of guys are counting a lot of the European trials guys out.
Yeah.
in the same way that like Craig Jones got counted out in 2017,
Sure.
where it's like, oh yeah, your trials winners are legit dudes that have nothing to lose, and they're gonna throw everything at you. If anyone's gonna throw everything at you,
Yeah, it's one of them.
it's like a guy like Langacker that's like historically that's been his game.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of guys that are new and up and coming and have great, you know, like Barch, his wrestling.
Yep.
And you have Varela, his wrestling. You have Leone and like the showcase of his wrestling.
Yeah.
Langacker can throw a wrench into everyone,
Yeah.
and it's just in a fun way like that.
Agreed.
Any other big matchups that you're really interested in?
We didn't talk about Tackett. Tackett looks awesome against a lot of these matchups.
We have Barch and Varela, which are like both fun
Yeah.
matchups. He beat Varela in the finals at West Coast Trials, and that was close, and that was like, ooh, that could be
so
fun.
we won't see that.
We probably won't see that. It'll be opposite.
But we could see him versus Barch, which would be can we?
Maybe.
But stylistically, Tackett's an interesting play here. He's been changing his game so much recently. You know, he's clearly in shape for this.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see him against a lot of these guys. But yeah, that's
Honestly,
all.
I think it would be really fun to see Tackett versus like fucking Torres. Would be just a
which
wild,
you could actually see.
Yeah, which would be
right?
like, I'm thinking about kind of how they will bracket it, and the whole point of today's show is not to think as much about that,
yeah.
but like that's how my brain works, Zach.
Yeah, it's gonna pop in. Every
That
once
would
in a
be,
while.
and I think that's a match that Tackett will really struggle with, but it will be again your old guard winner champion versus your new trials winner
Yeah.
with like the skills and like rapidly making improvements. Like it would be really interesting to see how Tackett deals with someone like with the not ineptitude. What's
experience,
wisdom. Yeah, wisdom as like Torres there.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a really rough match, but it'd be interesting to see like I want to see Torres versus like a trials winner first. And like hopefully, honestly, like one of the U.S. guys, or U.S. trials winners, because I think that clash of like your new guy versus your old champion
Yeah.
would be really interesting for me. For like,
And there's some people that I want to see a couple matches out of, and I know JT. I feel fairly confident that JT is going to win most of those matches, and so some of them I don't want to see JT against because I want that guy to have a couple matches.
That's kind of why I don't want to see the Tackett match. But why if I say it now, I'm less sad when it happens. When it's literally, this is a sadness hedge.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see Tackett. It's like
sadness hedge.
yeah. I got that from the guys at Heavy Hands. So they do that every week when they make picks. They go like, oh, like I'm gonna pick against Aldo because it's a sadness hedge. So if he loses, I'm less sad about it, even though I think Aldo's gonna win. Yeah,
this
is like this may be a sadness hedge pick. But I want to see it so that we didn't see it. Thank God.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I think that's all we got for 77.
77 is any match you can make is going to be hot fire.
Yeah.
Moving on to the under 88 kilogram division, we have some dudes in here that are like we have some guys that have a special strength.
Yes.
That I think will be really
And
interesting.
this is something that we kind of talked about. This as far as divisions go, this is the one that we have the stats bars, your like skill points added to all of these people are just all over the place. You know, we see a lot of speed and explosion in 77, along with all the other skills necessary, obviously, but like those are their like predominant skills. In this division, we have guys that are extremely strong, but maybe aren't known for being as fast. We have guys that are extremely fast, but maybe not known for being as strong.
Yep.
We have like stylistically, we have things all over the board. I think that's going to make this an extremely interesting bracket.
Yeah.
Because
66. We talk about like video game sliders. You're making a character. 66. You're sliding them mostly to speed.
yeah.
And like there's wrestling there, there's some good wrestling there, but it's like mostly speed. Some guys are a little stronger, a little faster, but like mostly guys are like, hey, they play a really quick game, and they're gonna scramble and out scramble you, and they're gonna lock you down, and that's gonna be a lot of the matches. 77, those sliders start to come to the middle where you got some strength, you got some speed, you have like some.
So you end up in this explosive realm where they're really fast, but they got a little bit of
88. You got guys like Wagner that are coming up from 77 in the lower weight classes into 88. Has really filled out into 88 well, but he still probably is one of the faster guys in this division. As a guy again formerly coming, he's a little older.
Yeah,
but
sure.
A guy coming up, a former medalist at ADCC, like coming up into this bigger division. Then you have dudes like fucking Mason Fowler.
Yep.
Like that dude is a human
tank.
horse. That like you look at his EBI matches with Craig Jones in SUG. It's like not our favorite format to watch, but the way that he back and neck cranked Craig Jones is not something that we see. And even Craig Jones talking about that dude's fucking strong.
Yeah.
Like that is not something we see someone have the strength to have ever done against Craig Jones before.
Yep.
And that was like, woo.
And so you got guys,
different strong.
Fowler, you have Pedro Mourinho is another guy that is just known for being incredibly strong. Hulk Barbosa, known for being incredibly strong.
Mateus Diniz.
Diniz is also, right? And then you also have guys on the other end of the spectrum that are known for being extremely fast, like Azaki Bahenz plays a quick man's game at minus 88. And so you have
Isaac. I think Isaac is another guy that, like, again, your trials winner at 99, but like was a smaller guy anyway. Like, he was quick at 99. I think he's a younger guy that's going to leverage, like, cool. He's not going to be the biggest and strongest, but he's going to leverage his speed here.
Ty Rotullo plays a minus 77 game at 88. He's been filling out relative size-wise.
He was 66 last ADCC.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And stylistically, he still plays that way. And I think athleticism-wise, he can still play that way because he's got the speed, especially moving into 88.
And again, like, also guys like Bodoni and Jacob Rodriguez, like Giancarlo, those two guys, we're going to see a faster-paced game. So this is the dynamics of this division are very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to see Hulk and Diniz again.
I would love to see Hulk and Diniz again.
If we get that Worlds match where it was like the Uno reverse card match, like that match stands out in my head like so amazing. And also they had a BJJ bet match, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was like the Hulk won it while being asleep.
Oh yeah,
was that his match? Was that
Diniz? I don't remember. I remember Hulk being. I remember the.
If you remember,
the
DM us.
DM us.
We're running on 15 hours of sleep.
But I think Diniz can have a lot of incredible matches here.
Also, we're forgetting a guy. Pedro Mourinho's in this division now.
I mentioned him.
Did you?
Yeah.
Pedro Mourinho's dropping down to 88 from wherever he was prior.
He was 99.
He was 99, but like that dude can guillotine a lot of people.
And he's strong as shit.
Yes.
You know, and especially moving into 88, he's really strong. And that actually brings me, I want to see Bahenz as this like typically quick player. I would love to see him against Mourinho or Hulk, someone. Fowler would be a great, like those three guys that are known for being incredibly strong, but like to play a bit more of a. I mean, Hulk plays an in between explosive game usually, but you know, Fowler and Mourinho are playing these games where they're looking to cinch something in and fucking control the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And I would love to see someone like Bahenz against them that's gonna be able to swoop in and out of those positions that they want them in.
One match that we're probably going to see here is another coach and pupil match. We have Ty Rotolo and Josh Hinger. Josh Hinger, medalist at
2019
at 88 in 2019 versus, you know, a guy that he coached or used to coach or still coaches in Ty
same
Rotolo.
room for sure.
Same room at Atos for a long time. Like, that match is very interesting because you have your young up-and-comer, brand new black belt Ty Rotolo, former, you know, ADCC, looked good at the previous ADCC.
Yeah.
Now going against a coach and a guy that's a former medalist and it's a little older, and we have seen nothing on social media from Hinger.
Nothing.
Like, we've seen, like, he looks like he's in shape, but
maybe
we're seeing.
Like, we have we even really seen him posting much?
I've seen him posting like workout stuff.
I'm sure he's in shape,
but we haven't seen a lot of, like, at least not that has come across my feed,
and I'm sure that's just him playing tight to the chest, not that he's not prepared. Like, I think it's a smart thing for him to do, especially being someone that everyone has hours and hours and hours and hours of tape on. He's played a pretty consistent game for a long time. If he's trying to like fill holes or develop something, it's probably smart for him to play it close to the chest because everyone knows where the rest of his game is, you know?
Another guy with a ton of tape is Sanji in this division.
Yeah.
And it's like, so Sanji was out 2019 with a hand injury that needed surgery, but he's been in every ADC since like
long time.
Him and his brother been there almost since the beginning.
We quickly looked up some records on some of these guys beforehand.
Sanji has BJJ Heroes matches from 2001.
2001.
Like,
over 20 years ago, that dude was already
a black belt,
competing at a level where people were recording his wins.
Yeah. That's wild. I kind of want to see Sanji versus Hinger. I don't know if it's happened. I don't remember if it's happened or not, but like, again, the veteran guys in the division.
No, we looked this up. Sanji and Hinger have not had a match. I think
that would be fun.
Stylistically, I think it's interesting too. They're both guys that want to play the same game, right? They both want to get down onto the top and smush you in a way that you don't like. You know, it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, that's a super interesting one. Again, Fowler, like, Fowler has so many X Factor questions for me because it's like, if he doesn't lose to Craig in that somewhat controversial match that kind of got restarted and like there was a bunch of points, Craig finished him with the sub, but does he not lose there? What does his run in 2019 look like? And without Jones in the division, like, I think that Fowler goes far here. Again, you're in it before. You win at trials to show that you still belong here. Like, where do you bracket a guy like that? I don't think he's going to see Deniz unless it's in the finals. I just don't think they'll be on the same side of the bracket.
Yeah.
I would honestly love to see Fowler versus Hulk.
Fowler-Hulk is an interesting matchup.
That would be a really interesting match because, again, they want to play a similar game, both known for being very, very strong, but also they both have a level of like dynamism and speed that is somewhat unique.
And they both very much want to be playing top.
Yes. So
historically, at least.
Very, very fun matches. I think honestly, Pedro Mourinho versus Mateus Deniz would be really fun too.
Mourinho Deniz, I think, is a
Deniz
realistic.
Tends to play a little safer and slower game, and Pedro is not going to let anyone play that.
Yeah, that's a matchup that we might actually see too.
Yeah.
I also think Bodoni looked exceptional at trials. He changed teams recently. He in the prior to trials, I think, and prior to recently, he had been really hit or miss, right? And so like he had some standout days and some days where he didn't look as good.
He has a couple weird sub losses here.
Yeah, here and there.
Kind of like, the guys that are not in ADCC, and we were like, that's odd. And he has a really close match with Elder Cruz, and the loss to Nick Ronan, and like it's like, but recently
he's looked really good, and he's at a new team. He's with New Wave, Gordon Donaher team. And I don't at East Coast Trials, at least where he won to get his spot in this division, we could hear Gordon coaching him, and his acceptance of coaching was an interesting feature of his game. He was listening to coaches really well, and someone that does that can develop their game really quickly. The specific moment
was he was doing something on the back, and then Gordon goes 3/4 or something like that. And
he goes, don't do that, move to 3/4 Nelson, and then
Bodoni just like, boom. I don't do that. I recall when I watched it that Gordon just said like 3/4 or like whatever the term they use for like behind the head, the neck crank down. And like he just goes like, he just immediately stopped and did that and did the thing. And it was like, whoa, that was an extremely like not think, just do thing coach told to do. And having a guy like that that's making those sort of, and again, we saw him in Who's Number One with that outside foot sweep that him, Mergali, and Gordon are all hitting.
And so it'll be interesting to see how he fares here. We're probably going to, as a trials winner, we're probably going to see him against an invite guy or a formal medalist.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so we could see Benoni Deniz, which I think would be a really interesting matchup. I think they're trying to play a very similar game here.
Yeah.
Deniz being someone that's been around the block for a long time, I'd probably take Deniz on that. But at the same time, it would be interesting test for Bodoni.
But Deniz doesn't play a super heavy sub game.
No.
And Bodoni's a guy that you can get to his back like J-Rod did, but he's going to put you through a little bit initially and be very hard to kind of control. So that may fall into what kind of Mateus does, but there may be moments there where like we're going to see what New Wave's been working on.
Right.
And I think having like a champion or like a guy like Hulk or like a guy that has the experience to force him to like really play that A game. And again, everyone's going to come into ADCC playing the A game.
And specifically, we've seen,
pressure that A game in that world champion way.
Yeah, and specifically, we've seen clearly that the New Wave guys are all training for ADCC right now. We have 4 of them in here: Bodoni,
Gordon,
Mergali, Gordon, and Big Dan.
Yeah.
We've seen Mergali, Bodoni, and Gordon all recently, and they all were playing carbon copies of the same game that is this sort of peek out.
And then Big Dan broke a guy's leg.
Well, yeah. But they're playing. All 3 of them were playing this sort of like peek out stand up game. So it looks clear that they're all saying, okay, this is how we're going to win ADCC.
Yeah.
And historically, Donaher is capable of coming up with a game plan that wins ADCC. So
at least get your medals.
Yeah, at least get your medals, man. Yeah. So I think he's an interesting person to see in the bracket, and I would love to see him against Deniz because that's a huge test for him.
Yeah.
I would love to see him against some of the older invite guys, so Chanji and Hinger, because I would like to see how that sort of new...
Honestly, Wagner.
Wagner would be a great one. To have a guy
like Wagner Bodoni would be really interesting for me because you're going to get that Wagner pressure where it's like the ref has to tell Wagner to stop. And one thing that John Hansen said when we were up in Nebraska with him this weekend was like ADCC is a fight.
Yeah.
And like until the ref tells you to stop doing some shit, you do it. And guys do it, and like they go in. He goes, if you approach it as a match, you are setting yourself up to lose. And I think a guy like Wagner, like knows that. And he won trials, 2011 or like 13, like
he's
a
been there a
long time ago. And like he knows, and he treats it like a fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can see it in all his matches. But him immediately putting that kind of pressure on a guy like Bodoni, I'd be very curious to see like how Bodoni reacts to that, and like if he is able to still implement that Danaher, that A game on a guy that is going to come into him like a fight in a way that we haven't really seen as much of him have to deal with.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that would be a very fun matchup. Any other, again, other than all of them, any other matchups in 88 that you want to talk about?
No, we covered a lot of 88, guys.
Okay, moving on to 99, a division that Zach and I have spent the last really 4 days just talking to John Hansen about. John, so I did a great...
minus 99 we're on right now.
All right, man, I got excited.
Forgot a division.
Forgot, man, the bigger little guys. So... Look, all of them are not my people. They're all like we're a whole person ahead of me right now.
Skipping minus 99. So minus 99. A couple people that we pointed out early on. Kynan, obviously returning champion from plus 99, dropping minus 99. He's the one standout that we have here because we don't have the previous winner coming back here at minus 99. Pull it up.
Gordon.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because coming back to obviously coming back to the division.
No, like we have. So
no,
if,
I don't need to
pull,
do that.
pull behind the curtain here. We pulled up a bunch of like Wikipedia pages just to make sure we don't like just speak out of our ass.
Like I just
because
did.
we don't do these shows very often where it's just like fan time, and it's like who's 99? It's like this is like Zach looked at me.
That's the most obvious person from all of 2019 ADCC, and I was like,
give us some credit. There are 98 people right now in ADCC.
Yeah,
we have to have background information. I talked about this probably 6 months ago on the show.
Yeah.
It's like we keep a roster of about 250 people in our head, or I do.
Yeah.
At most times. Sometimes you fuck up. Sometimes they're very important. Like, who won Worlds last year? I don't recall.
I'm not a encyclopedia.
Yeah.
All right, so...
We don't have Gordon in this division.
We don't have Gordon in this division. He moved up to 99, plus 99. Kynan moved down to minus 99, so we had a switch there of the champions and in terms of brackets. Kynan, for me, is sort of the safe choice to win the bracket, safest choice to win the bracket here, but he's got a lot of challenging people to come up against.
Have Craig and Kynan ever went against each other?
We did look this up, and I don't think so.
Okay. That would be a fun match. Again, that's a match that I think we only see in the finals. Greg Jones is your silver medalist, only losing to Deniz, the division down at minus 88 in ADCC 2019. That is a matchup we have to see on opposite sides. That's a matchup I'm very interested in because, for one answer, can he heel hook Kynan Duarte like Tim Spriggs did?
Right. And, we've seen kinks in Kynan's armor, specifically when it comes to leg entanglements and leg play. Mm-hmm. And if there's anyone in the division or anyone in the world that's going to do it, it's maybe Lachlan, but also Craig. Those are the two that we're looking at.
We've seen Lachlan do it once. Can Craig do what Lachlan did in 2019? He definitely can, but it's like we know Kynan. Again, heel hooks have been an issue for Kynan's ADCC runs. They were an issue in 2017. They were an issue in 2019. They were an issue in 2021. Who's number one and the final of that. Like, they have been an issue. And kind of in the same way that Jimenez has been an issue. Like, he can get caught with them. Has he made... And obviously, under the tutelage of Andre Galvao at Atos, he has been working and making improvements. That's not something that they just don't address.
Right.
Like, he's one of the best in the world. He's a world champion. They address it. Has he made the improvements, kind of like Deniz did, to not get leg locked by Craig Jones?
Yeah.
That's a matchup I want to see. We only see it in the finals. Another big wrench in this division is Murgali.
Yeah, and so Murgali, coming out of an incredible career as a primarily gi jiu-jitsu player.
Not like primarily. Like he only did the gi until 3 matches ago. And he was like, I'm going to do no gi. Now again, he did get an invite in 2019. Yes. Remember that. So it's like, it's not like he hasn't been doing any no gi.
Sure.
But like now he has moved to B team, moved to Austin, Texas under John and Gordon, and that dude is doing a shitload of no-gi and now competing in no-gi. He recently beat Rafael Lovato Jr. I always put an R in his name there. And who's number one, looked good doing it.
Yeah. And so excited in terms of like, what match do I want to see? Murgali and Devontae Johnson would be dope.
Yeah, that'd be dope, man.
Those two guys. So Devontae is incredibly aggressive on the feet, right? We've seen a couple matches from here, especially thinking like trials, where I think he might have been a little low on gas or something along those lines. And when he can't be super aggressive, then his matches can be a little bit boring, right?
He'll do that world champion level guy thing where it's like, I'm going to have a tactical match and beat you on margins.
Sure.
Like, he is willing to put all the chips down and go, I'm going to bet on me here and my tactics.
Sure. But also early on in tournaments and in single matches, we've seen him
truck through anyone.
Fucking go balls to the wall. And so I would love to see Mergali and Devontae first round. I don't think it'll happen by bracketing, but if we got that first round, it would be explosive and incredible because Mergali is the kind of person that is constantly going for submissions.
They're both invited.
They're both invited.
Probably we'll see them against a trials winner first.
But that doesn't work out 50-50 for here, I think. But either way, whether we see it first round or not, I would love to see it first round, mostly because I want these two guys to have a ton of energy in them. I want Devontae to be going in there aggressive, attacking. I want Mergali to play the game that he plays where, maybe he ends up on his back playing from guard, but he's not going to be gentle there, and he is constantly going for something. And I think that ends up being an exciting match where Devontae can't press forward as much as he wants, but does push forward. Mergali is countering with submissions constantly. I think that's a good match.
I think another interesting match is Craig Jones-Mergali.
Because
you have Mergali essentially kind of taking the long, tall guy, big guy position that Craig took at the DDS team. Now you have Mergali at New Wave under John Danaher as that same body style. It's like, I think Craig and his outstanding leg lock arsenal can beat Mergali, but you also have that whole team that knows and coached Craig for years, that knows exactly what he does, exactly where he struggles, and you have one of the best game planners in the world like John Danaher and Andre Galvao. Like, those dudes can game plan for opponents. You know, you're going to have a game plan set up for Craig Jones. How does that look? But that's a match I don't think we'll see that match. But I would be interested in that match for just a game plan of how does Mergali deal with him?
And Danaher and his team have no qualms about being like, I know exactly what Craig's doing.
Yes.
This is how you beat Craig, and they will teach Mergali to do that. So if that matchup happens,
and I think they've probably already done that.
Oh, I'm sure. I guess, but I didn't mean will, but I have, I guess at this point. And so that does become interesting.
Another
3 guys that I want to see.
Keep on.
Various matchups of Patrick Gaudio, Elder Cruz, and Kyle Boehm. Those 3 are incredibly strong and have the ability to overpower almost anyone in the bracket. So seeing any of those 3 up against each other ends up being really...
Boehm also dropping to 99.
Yes.
That's an interesting kind of fold that recently happened. Is Kyle Boehm, guys talk about him. Guys talk. And one thing that you universally hear about competitors talk about is less about the tactics, but more about that dude is weirdly strong.
Yep.
And it is something you heard before a couple of times, but everyone I've talked to that talks about Kyle Boehm goes oh, that dude's weirdly strong, in a weird kind of way.
And he plays a bottom game specifically with that strength, which is really interesting. A lot of the guys that you see that and you hear that about are dudes that want to play on top. And so you hear that that guy's weirdly strong, and you hear it in a sense that they're probably playing pressure heavy, or their stand-up game is this type of way that I can't get inside, and so there's ways that you can feel stronger than maybe you already are. Boehm plays a bottom game often, and to hear that from someone, to say that guy's really strong when they're a guard player often, means that they're getting these sort of hooks and grips on you from the bottom that are unusual, and that's something that I want to see against someone like Gaudio or Elder Cruz that are playing these top games, these heavy pressure, and are also very strong. I want to see how that matchup works.
Another interesting matchup, it would be a rematch, so it's unlikely to see, is Yuri Samos and Rafael Lovato Jr. They have a match in 2012. They have a match in 2013.
They had a couple matches.
And then they have a match in 2019 at Fight to Win that Yuri takes on decision.
Yeah.
And under the ADCC rule set, might be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I absolutely
Again, Yuri
think so.
has previously taken over Lovato, but
I also generally like the idea of 2 of the sort of old guard guys going up against each other early.
Every division has 2 old guard guys, and it'd be nice to see him go into second round because young monsters like to eat the old.
Yeah.
And again, amazing grapplers, but especially
age is a factor.
recently.
Age is a factor you need to consider, and how long you've been doing this game is a factor to consider.
That was the wild thing about Tenquinho. Like 40 winning, everyone counted him out first round.
Yep.
And like almost every single bracket, I was like, he could be a factor and like he could show up, but you know, everyone counted him out. And then he goes like, nah, man, I'm Tenquinho.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win.
And he won
he did.
on incredible technique all the way through.
Yeah.
You know, another guy in here, Paul Ardila, is someone, we were talking about this in the pre-show.
In the pre-show.
That like, you know, we kind of referenced video game stats, right?
Yeah.
And
it's kind of the best way to do it for brackets like this. You have so many guys. And they all like we cover the sport enough where you can look at a guy and go, oh yeah, his speed is here in the bracket here, and like, but his like, oh, his technique is way here, like, and you can place all the sliders for like where people have certain attributes.
Yeah,
and
so
it's the easiest way to think about it. And like, here's his 8 stats. Here they go.
And so what we were saying for Ardila is he is the relative to everyone else. So like, he is the above average on everything. I don't mean he's above average as a jiu-jitsu player. Obviously, he's world-class, incredible. But, like, relative to everyone else, every single part of his game that I am familiar with is above average in the bracket.
Yes.
And so he can be placed against anyone, and some part of his game is going to be better than some part of the other person's game.
He is the monkey wrench guy.
Right.
Where it's like, and if in tactics, like, he can be beaten in places. But tactically, if he plays it right, he has an avenue to victory against pretty much
anyone
in
the
bracket.
Yeah, I think anyone in the bracket, he has a path to victory. I think it's going to be really hard sometimes. Like, there are some people that have an exceptional skill in certain avenues.
Like, you put him against Gaudio. Like, that's a nightmare.
It's a tough match for him, but he has paths to victory on it. And so I think him against most people in the bracket are going to be interesting. I think him against some of the bigger guys, because he's on the smaller side for minus 99.
Yeah.
And so I think him against some of the bigger guys early would be an interesting test. So again, Gaudio, Cruz, Bame.
Yeah.
He's
definitely going to have more speed than those guys.
Yes.
And that's interesting. Also, he's a full-time lawyer still. And like for me, it's always like, oh, that's rough to be like a real job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that again, I don't have much more on under 99 because again, to keep circling through, like where do you put Elder Cruz here? I'm so excited about this. Move on up now. We move on to plus 99 kilograms,
which we have been thinking about extensively over the past week because this is John Hansen's bracket.
Yep.
We've spent a lot of time with John over the past couple of days. We've talked a lot about all the divisions for ADCC with him and others, but this is the one we've been talking about the most, obviously.
Because he's in it.
Right? And so
starting off, I want to see him. He wants to see him. I want to see him fight Orlando.
Yeah, I think that's a great matchup.
That'd be a wild matchup. I think he's a heavy dude that plays a bottom game. Orlando is a big fucking... Apparently, Orlando's smaller.
Yeah, he's down to...
He's not 330
He's not 330 anymore. I think word on the street is he might even be under 300 in the 280 range is what people are saying. So that's interesting for Orlando because Orlando has classically been the like... Oh, it's plus 99. You can be as big as you want, and Orlando is going to just be as big as he wants,
I'm going to be as big as I want.
Yeah.
And Orlando Sanchez. And we see him
and
on
he's
Pound
not
of Blast
that
in 2017.
Tall, so he's like he's always been this sort of cannonball of an individual that can outstrength people and did an incredible job of that in 2017 when he won. And then, like, Nick Rodriguez outspeeded him in 2019, right? And so
plus 99 is fun as fuck. Because it's just like you take the slider and you just like one side or the other for all the stats. It's either like, hey man, we're just gonna slide it one way. Like, oh cool, you're 330 pounds, but like the speed's gonna go down. Like you're not a quick guy, but fuck, you lean on it. You lean through anyone in the world. Like that's your stat. Or like, hey, Nick Rodriguez, you're gonna be like freakishly fast for your division and strong, but you've been doing jiu-jitsu about 2 years. So it's like, hey man, you know about 8 things and that's all you need.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, but it's a slider division of just like you guys play so heavy to certain attributes. Like Big Dan ain't ever gonna wrestle you. He never gonna do anything. He is gonna pull and try to break your leg off. And it's like you put everything into I am 200. What the fuck is he? 300 and
Big Dan.
Yeah.
I thought he was. I'm not sure on weight. I think he's like 6'7" or 6'8" or something.
I'm saying like that, but I think he's like 290 pounds.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Is he only 290? But he's another guy that we have heard and most talked about him like freakishly strong.
Well, he's also massive. That makes sense. You should be freakishly
strong. But they're talking about like he just carried a safe that like their movers couldn't move upstairs by himself. I'm sorry, like what? Yeah, he just picked it up, and you're like, holy shit.
But speaking of strength, one of the things that we've kind of heard about, so
also Gordon Ryan's in this division.
Yeah, well, I figured we would come around to that eventually, but apparently some people in this division, John included, but also we've talked to some others that have done this, have reached out to the people that Heike,
the first European trials
winner.
You said it in the pre-show correctly, and I was like, that was correct. Heike.
Some of the people that Heike had matches against in trials, and just, hey, do you have any information on this guy? What was it like? Right, that kind of stuff, which makes sense. All of these people should be doing that.
Yeah. Everyone, by the way, everyone does that.
Everyone does that. Everyone should be doing that.
Yeah.
But apparently the word on the street is that everyone has been like, Heike is the strongest person that I've ever come across in my entire life.
Yep.
And I think that people are ruling him out. But that alone
in our rankings, we had him ranked as one of the lower guys because again, he's a European trials winner. We don't see him on the international stage with a huge degree of frequency, especially in events that we are able to cover on the show. Right. So again, that's a selection bias for me. And again, we talk about this pretty openly on the show. It's like if I haven't seen you compete super often, like I guys that are in front of me, I just tend to rank more, and so I haven't seen Heike a ton other than the European trials. So like,
but I mean that's hard because for no-gi European trials winners is especially difficult because there's Euros, which is a gi event in Europe, so we get to see some of the guys from Europe playing in the gi.
We don't cover many no-gi events in Europe.
If you're a no-gi guy, there's not a big event for us to talk about except European trials, and so it's hard. But word on the street is the dude is incredibly strong, and that's an interesting factor, the interesting X factor in the division. So we want to see Hansen.
We want to see Nick Rodriguez and Gordon Ryan because everyone wants to see that. That is a finals match because you're not going to bracket them on the same side because they're different teams now. And I think it's been said that they will not be bracketed on this. I think. I don't know if it's been
it would
said,
make sense if they were on the same
side.
But
I think like we recognize. I think Mo talked about it. Like they're different teams. They're not seen as the same. Even though they have trained each other in the past, they are different teams now. They've been different teams for
2 year and a half. At
year and a half at least. I came across on the show. Our show that we did, like everything we know about the DDS breakup.
Yeah. So at least a year, more than a year. Yeah. But still, seems like they'll probably be on opposite sides of the bracket. That would be an interesting matchup because if anyone knows Gordon's game on an intimate level better than Nicky in this division, I would be extremely surprised. That said, Gordon would know Nicky Rodriguez's game well also, but Nick is earlier in his career, and your game changes faster earlier in your career typically.
Like, that dude is going to look different next year. It's in the same way his brother
looks different right now than he did 2 months ago. Like, he just does. Yeah. He's so early in the career that he's got to be developing fast. And so, those X factors that occur between when DDS broke up and now influence Gordon's perception of Nick more than Nick's perception of Gordon, I think.
This is also a division that skews very heavily older and experienced. We have 5 former champions in this division.
Incredible. Five. Not 5 former medalists, 5 former champions.
We got Gordon, we got Felipe Pena, we got Orlando Sanchez, we got Cyborg, and we got Vinny. There is a bracket that exists where you have to fight 4 champions in a row.
Yes.
There's a bracket that exists for that. And so this is also a weird bracket because you can actually pretty much pick this bracket fairly how it's going to be laid out, aside from a couple of guys. Roosevelt Souza and Cyborg are teammates at Fight Sports. You have Gordon Ryan and Big Dan are teammates at New Wave. You have, let's see.
Orlando,
Felipe Pena. And another GB guy, and I don't remember. And I'm not having enough sleep to remember who the other third guy is.
Yeah.
But there's a 3 people of that side of a quad essentially for a first and second round there on day 1, and then you also have
some people have had matches before. Max and John had
Hasim
a match
and Orlando
at last ADCC. Cyborg had a match with Nick at last ADCC.
Yep. So we're not going to see them on the same side of the bracket. So you won't see them on
the same side of the bracket. Like there's a lot of ways that you could probably pick out what this bracket's going to look
Gordon
like.
And Pena are not going to be on the same side of the bracket. Like that, we knew that even before the match last week or last weekend or whatever. Last month is what I meant.
Yeah, because they also had a fight at last ADCC.
They've had 2 ADCCs ago. 17.
Oh, yeah,
17.
17,
and then they had the Studio 540 match, and
Yep.
they said they were not going to see that match. We're probably not going to see Gordon and Cyborg unless it's final match, because they've had 2 matches, one at Nogi Worlds, one at ADCC.
Yep.
We're probably not going to see like Max Jimenez versus John Hansen immediately, even though that's a match that John wants back because they're 1-1, and John has a win over Jimenez in ADCC.
So matches that are interesting. Gordon versus anyone is interesting, right? I think if anyone's going to...
Gordon versus Vinny. I want to see Gordon versus Vinny, because that is one of...
A couple
matches.
But that's it. That's it that he hasn't
other than Leandro. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Other than Leandro, now I'm sad. But Vinny Magalhaes has a win over Gordon Ryan in 2017 or 18 at ACB JJ, an event that no longer exists, but it was a weird kind of round event. Vinny beat him on points.
Yep.
That's a match that even Gordon a couple weeks ago talked about wanting back.
So that would be...
And it was signed, but Vinny had an MMA fight, so they couldn't do it. And that's a match they went back. That's a match I want to see again.
Yeah.
But this is the first match we've seen since Vinny got his shit broken in half.
Oh, that's right. But it's been enough time for him to heal.
Oh, he's healed up.
I think that's something that we could see second round if Vinny takes his first match. I don't think we'd see that first round, but if
we
Vinny
would
can
absolutely not see that first round.
But it could be second.
We're talking about matches I would like to see.
Yeah, I would like to see it. Right.
I would like to see that match. That would be a very.
If you guys
fun
haven't
match
noticed, we've talked a lot about bracketing, and we're trying to avoid talking about bracketing right now, but the conversation keeps going back to that because it's what's been on our mind for a long time.
We very much don't do a pie in the sky show.
Yeah.
And so this is very much kind of out of character for how we think about. We try to think about the matchups kind of tactically, and less. We don't do a fan show very often. We're like, I want to see this matchup. We're not reaching that matchup.
So
it's I want to see Gordon and Penna first round. You're like, it's not going to happen. Why would you even talk about that?
So I want to see John Hansen and Victor Hugo. I think they're both huge dudes.
Yeah.
Even for this bracket, or even for this division, they're big guys, and they're both big guys that want to play on the bottom. I think it makes for a very interesting tactical matchup, especially in the ADCC rule set where you're kind of penalized for taking bottom. You have 2 guys that want to take bottom under normal circumstances that are extremely good on the bottom.
You said Hugo?
Victor Hugo, yeah. I think that's a interesting matchup to see tactically what each of those guys choose to do.
Zhao Gabriel Hosha, Gordon Ryan, kind of for the same reason.
Yeah.
And also that was the match that Gordon blew his leg out in, but still won very close margins.
Yep.
Has a lot of analogs to the Buchecha match, where it's a guy that knows how to play the tactical game for the rule set versus a guy that it was very hard for him. I think it was an ACBGJ match as well, or maybe it was one of those Brazilian super fights. I don't recall where they fought, but that's another interesting rematch. Jimenez and Gordon is another rematch.
Mm-hmm.
John Hansen and Nick Rodriguez is a rematch from the first trial, or the West Coast trials, 2019.
Yep.
So that would be an interesting match that, again, I know Hansen wants back.
Yeah, sure. One that we talked about that would be really interesting is Rita and Nick Rodriguez, because those are 2 guys that like to be aggressive.
Yeah, and we've seen both of them have very slow paced matches.
Sure.
But in ADCC, I don't think that will happen, because they both know that they can overwhelm the other if they have the opportunity, and so they're probably not going to play a reserved match, and both can scramble wild. Again, we've seen Rita scramble and take a dude's back, like the Elder Cruz match.
Yep.
Scramble, take a dude's back, and just get the sub. You're like, that's fucking wild. Or the short choke over Orlando.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fucking wild. So because he has the wins over the former champion, I am curious to see if they're going to put him against Rodriguez early. But that's speaking out, not bracketing, but matchups we'd like to see. I think stylistically that could be.
I think it's fun.
Or it's a terrible match because Rita does have a tendency to either be super gas or just like the Igor Tanabe match in Quintet, where it was they got DQ'd almost.
Yeah.
Due to inactivity, and
but the thing is, I don't think Nick Rodriguez accepts that. And so I think Nick Rodriguez is moving forward enough that Rita also has to move forward. And I think we get an explosive, exciting match out of that, not the other way around, because I think that Nick's just not the kind of... We don't see that from him as much. We've seen it when we're already on the mat, so his match versus Yuri was a little bit slower, but they got down. And now Nick was trying to pass. I think on the feet, it's going to be explosive.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Penna and Rita, or Penna and Damon Ramos in a first-round matchup.
And Ramos is someone that I think people are writing off as an invite.
He lost to John at the first trials.
Yeah.
And then in the finals of that trials, and then looked very good. And
he looked good in trials,
though. He was a reserve, and I got an invite.
Yep. And he looked really good in trials. He had incredible wrestling.
Yep.
He was...
He out-wrestled Pat Downey.
Yes.
Like
which is not... For those of you that don't know, Pat
real...
Downey's not a big jiu-jitsu name, but he was kind of popping up here and there. Pat Downey was...
Could have been... He has Olympic level...
Olympic level
yes.
wrestling.
Some other things that didn't get him to the Olympics, but could have been a guy in that... Was a guy in that conversation.
Yeah. He was a guy expected to go to the Olympics until some other shit happened. He is or was trying to make the transition into doing jiu-jitsu and MMA.
Yep, he's doing MMA now. He just fought in Bellator 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Knocked a guy out or something. I did beat the guy in a minute.
Yeah. And Damon Ramos was under ADCC rules able to out-wrestle Pat Downey, which is big, right?
Yep.
And so he's not necessarily someone to write off despite being an invite due to second place at a trials. And so it'll be interesting to see him against someone that is maybe a little on the older side that's been around. Him against Cyborg would be really interesting strength-wise. Him against Max might be really interesting. Max plays an extremely athletic game.
And Max Jimenez is down way slim. So I watched his MMA debut, and Max historically was a bigger guy. That dude slimmed down and looks like he was a pro athlete as a bigger guy. That dude looks like freakishly big pro athlete now, abs, the whole deal. So, I'm very curious. That speed has had to come up significantly.
Yeah.
And
that'll be exciting.
That'll be a wild matchup.
I would like to see that. Damon Ramos versus one of the more experienced guys like Cyborg or Max that are still very physical in the game would be interesting to me. Again,
you're young up-and-comer taking on your old line, your former champion. Those are always really interesting matchups because, again, Nick Rodriguez beat Cyborg and Orlando.
Beat two former champions.
And at the time, Orlando was the defending champion.
Right.
That.
That's big.
That's really, really big. So David Ramos can absolutely be that guy where it's oh, you get invited, boom, throw you against the former champion. Wouldn't be surprising to see him run up against a champion and
make
not
work.
show cracks in a champion's armor, but make a champion work harder than you expected a trials, second place, invitee, guy look good at both trials to do.
Yep.
So
agreed.
That would be fun. Yeah. Anything more on plus 99? Again,
I don't think so.
Really, this division. A lot of people are writing off a lot of people. Who's just going to fight Gordon Ryan? There's some very interesting matchups to happen here, and we're going to learn a lot. I think about the guys that end up running against Gordon. I personally think Gordon will have harder matches than people anticipate.
And I think, it can go both ways, right? You might say, well, this is ADCC. Gordon can't lose here, right? You think it's the best version of Gordon that's coming in here. We've been given no reason to think that Gordon will ever lose a match for the rest of his life at this point, right?
38 in a row or something?
Yeah, something ridiculous. And so, there's that. It's the obvious choice. If he's going to lose, I think this is the scenario he loses because all of these guys have been training so incredibly hard. This is the biggest event that they could possibly be
training
for him. So he has 15 dudes here that have him on their mind. Everyone knows that if you want to be the champion, you will have to beat Gordon somewhere.
Yep.
That has to be your plan. So you have 15 guys that have been training for everyone, but largely to fight him. Yep. They're all in the best shape that they'll ever be in. So is Gordon.
And a lot of guys only want to fight him.
Yeah.
Where it's cool, I want him first round.
And so you get a guy that's catered his game to you round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4. Eventually, that's got to wear on you, right? Mm-hmm. So I think if someone beats Gordon, this might be the opportunity to do it.
Yep.
I think in a super fight where he gets to it's a long shot, but in a super fight where he gets to decide the rules, I don't see anyone beating him anytime soon. I just don't see it happening. In ADCC, where he hasn't decided the rules and he has 15 people that want to beat him badly, I think it might happen. It could not might happen. I think it could happen.
It is a possibility. Seeing it would surprise me greatly. But again, like you said, everyone's coming to kill the king.
Yep.
And eventually that happens.
And it's more likely to happen here than in many other scenarios that we see.
Which honestly, to the point is that's why Gordon wanted to do the division in the first place.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And he said he was like, winning a super fight is easy.
Yeah.
He's like, you do it, you train for a guy, you beat him, and then you move on. Winning a division is way harder because of what we just talked about. You have to beat multiple guys who are already bringing their A game in a row, and you can't have any slip-ups. And like, you can be perfect for a match. Can you be perfect for 2 days?
Yeah.
And he had a really interesting interview and kind of perspective on like why he wanted to do what he wanted to do a division and the super fight was because like it's harder, it's more impressive. He goes, winning the super fight's not that impressive. Winning the division in his words.
I know.
And so I think it's really interesting, and that's, like, money where your mouth is. Props to him, dude. No champion has ever done it before.
Looking forward to it.
Good shit, man. So, moving on to the female divisions.
Minus 60. Bianca Basilio, my 2019 champion, coming back.
Yep.
So the way 2019 went, Fionn Davies broke Bia Mesquita's arm in the match.
I was, that arm broke there. I was standing here.
Fionn went on to lose to Bia Basilio in 2019.
Toe hold at the end.
By a toe hold. All three of them are back. We also have a really interesting South American Trials winner here in Maisa Bastos, who I've said on the show before, I think Maisa might be the most technical female that we have in the game right now.
Yeah.
In terms of technique, I think she is the best in all of the female out of all of the female competitors, at least in my opinion.
As a technician.
As a technician.
On the mat, I think on the feet is a different story, but on the mat, I think you can make an argument.
I think that's more what I'm talking about. On the feet, I'm kind of excluding a little bit, but I think on the mat, at least, she's the best technician out of all of the females that exist. She's also by far the smallest woman in this bracket.
Yep. She's not cutting any weight to get to minus 60.
She is probably trying to pack on as much weight as possible. She's one of the smallest. She's in the smallest female division.
Mm-hmm. She's Rooster.
She's at Rooster. And I think that's going to be a huge factor here. So I
personally think it will be an insurmountable factor here, but she's tenacious and she's very good, and she has a guard that is crazy to pass.
Crazy to pass.
She can fold herself in half to prevent you from passing the guard. I think it will be very, very interesting to see how she is going to pull.
Yeah.
Like, I do not anticipate her trying to out-wrestle
any of these people.
I could see it. We saw it a little bit of trials. Like, you could see it.
Sure.
But I think that at the World Championship level, like, her versus Fionn, I think, is a really wild matchup. It's like heavy pressure, like judo, like probably can't take Fionn down.
No, I think
she's
pulls
so much
Fionn.
quicker, but Fionn's also very quick.
I think the matchup that I want to see there is probably Bastos versus Bia Mesquita. They haven't seen each other before, as far as I could find.
Yeah,
and Bia is a extremely athletic and at the top of this weight class. I think Maisa pulls, and it's hard to pass her guard. She's down one. I don't think Bia takes the win on the penalty point, though. I think Bia is the type of person that will aggressively try to go after it. And so this is the chance that we get to see, can Maisa respond to someone that's bigger, stronger, faster with exceptional technique and pull off a win after pulling. I think that that's the way that match goes, and that's a match that I want to see because I think that's the way that it happens.
Also, the only division without an American.
Yeah.
Not a single American in this division, which is wild because our North American Trials winner, Brianne St. Marie, Canadian.
Yes.
Which is like, oh, damn, that's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a little while. But Brianna St. Marie, we were talking about in the pre-show, is kind of the like...
Dark horse. I think hard dark horse.
I don't know. I don't know if dark horse is... I think she's the, like... wild card is probably what I would call it.
Yeah, better way to put that.
I think she's extremely talented. I wouldn't be surprised if she takes wins. I could see a path to winning the whole thing for her. So I don't think it's like everyone's discounting her as a competitor here. Right. But I think that she plays a game that the rest of the women in this division aren't necessarily seeing on a day-to-day basis, in the same way that Fionn was that last time in 2019.
Yeah.
Fionn came out playing a version of jiu-jitsu that a lot of the women there were not expecting, technically speaking, I think. And then she got really far with it, right? And I think that Brianna St. Marie can be that person this time around.
Yeah. Again, I want to see Bastos and Fionn. I think Brianne St. Marie versus Fionn would be a wild match. I think that would be
awesome.
That would be a battle on the feet.
Absolutely.
And it would be an aggressive battle on the feet, and I'm very curious how that goes.
Even when it hits the ground, I imagine that it would, right? But when it hits the ground, both of those women want to pass aggressively and move quick into the passing. And so
Fion's at Essential now with JT.
Yes.
So you know that, like, look at JT's game. I think that whole room is like, oh, you're 2-time champion. That is one of the, like, some rooms. You have people like Atos has different styles and like different kind of, like, Hulk plays a different game than Andre, plays a different game than, Ty, plays a different game than Josh. For some reason, I'm not really sure, maybe speaking out of turn, I think that Essential, if you're going there, you're looking to emulate JT's game.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm.
But also, I think
that,
JT's game fits into what Fion's already doing very well, and so it's a team choice that makes a lot of sense for Fion.
Yeah.
And I think that instead of it being a new version of Fion, we see the old version of Fion with enhanced technique and better passing.
She has a couple more tools that are sharper.
Yes.
And, it's maybe not a couple more tools. She will go and sharpen the tools that she already has.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't think you'll see a huge expansion of that tool set, but everything is going to come in that was good is going to be great now.
I agree.
I think that'll be really, really interesting.
And that matchup with St. Marie sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Bia wants that match back.
I want to see the rematch between Bianca and Fion.
Yeah.
That's the match. It's honestly a match. They're going to be opposite sides of the bracket because, you're silver medalist and you're champion. Like, but that's a match. That's the match I want to see in
Which
this
means
division.
that we might also get to see Bia and Fion rematch as well on the way if that happens.
Probably bracketed other side.
But
actually,
Bia and Bia and
they'll probably be the same side of the bracket.
Probably 6 matches against each other, 7 matches against each other.
With 7.
With Bia Mosquito winning almost
all
of them or all of them.
So in that case, you're going to have Bianca and Bia on opposite sides of the bracket.
Probably, but it could go either way still,
so
right?
then, no, probably not.
Probably
because
not.
You have a bunch of rematches.
Yeah.
You have 2 former champions.
Yep.
Bia and Bianca are both former
champions.
champions, so you're probably not going to bracket them same side.
Yep.
You'll probably bracket them opposite side. You'll probably bracket Fion
on the same side as Bia.
Yep.
Mosquito.
Against Mosquito.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably how that goes. So we probably see the rematch. That's a spicy rematch. Like,
Last time they fought, Fion broke her arm.
Badly,
right?
It was one of the matches I was very happy there was a full sleeve rash guard. It was just one of those, like, I'm really happy that there's not skin. I don't see skin. I just see rash guard.
Yeah.
So that is
that'd be an exciting
we
rematch
will probably see if they both make it, and that'll be around. It's only 8 women, but you're around 2.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Any other matches here you want to talk about? Should be super, super fun. Female plus 60. This is the who can beat Gabby Garcia and because again, 4-time champion.
Yep.
And recent losses and has not looked as she did prior. She does not look like the unkillable force that she was prior.
Even in 2019, she seemed unkillable, right?
Yes.
But now we've seen some kinks in the armor, and she's getting older. That makes sense, right? That's what happens.
You've
she's
been
still showing
for
up
so long,
right?
And like that's
9 years
to maintain that is astronomical. But as a result, you've been in that slot for so long. People have only game planned for you over the years. They've met you. They've seen what you can do. They felt you. They've game planned. That's everyone who's beaten her has talked about, like, studying her game and studying and how they can beat her, and like that's the specific conversation that happens in the women's plus 60 kilogram division. Like, all of them are talking about, and Amanda Leve talked about, like, we looked at her game, we saw where we could beat her, and we did that. And
And
the Jesus, Natalia Jesus, talked about seeing her pans going, oh, I know how to beat her now, and then beat her. Like,
so it's doable, and we're there. And one of the ones that I wanted to point out here, so like interesting matchups for Gabby, Amy Campo stylistically plays a game close enough to Levy that I think if Amy is just looking at that match and saying, how did Levy do this? My skill set is close enough to what Levy's is in terms of technique and style,
and also size. Like the size is like
and speed,
very, very similar sized.
They're close enough that I think Campo can look at that match and say, how do I replicate this, and could do it. And so I think Gabby and Campo is a really interesting matchup, one that we might see even early on in the brackets that could take Gabby out. I would love to see that, and it's going to really depend on how much Campo can, like, adjust her games in small ways only to attack what Gabby's weak at, and then I think we could see a victory for her.
Other really interesting matchup would be Gabby versus Kendall.
Yes.
someone that like Kendall has great wrestling for the division.
Incredible wrestling, and if anyone's going to be able to get Gabby to the ground and get some points off of it in the second half of the match, I think it's Kendall.
Yeah.
Like Kendall's stand-up is the best in this division, I think. There's obviously argument to be made, but I think at face value, I would probably say Kendall's stand-up is the best in the division. She's also looking really strong right now.
She's slimmed down a ton.
She's slimmed down a ton, but also like looks like she's put on muscle in slimming down a bit.
Yes.
And so in that case, I think she might be... Her strength might be at a place where Gabby's is neutralized some. I don't think anyone's going to be stronger than Gabby in the division.
Absolutely not.
But what we can maybe hope is that you can neutralize a percentage of Gabby's strength. Yeah. And I think Kendall might be in a place where that...
going in and planning to do that. Like, you are not planning to go and be stronger than 235 Gabby on her best day. Because, like, she's going to come in in shape as she always has come in and be like, the force to be reckoned with that she has always been. No one's going to go, I'm going to go toe-to-toe with her and fight her where she's strong. Like, there's going to be tactical adjustments. I think Kendall can make those adjustments. She is smaller.
Yep.
She's going to have the speed there. That's a very interesting matchup. The other matchup that's interesting is, like, Elizabeth Clay. We didn't... We saw her... Did we see her in 2019?
No.
Okay.
No, she wasn't... No,
she won, but she won. She is the youngest trials winner ever. We saw her in 2017. She invited Karina Santis out of this division now. Yep. She's in that division. There's some fun rematches. The rematch with Geddes could happen. Have Kendall and Geddes gone against each other? I think they have.
Kendall and Geddes have gone together. Yeah. I think in the gi, though. Don't quote us on that.
I don't remember. I think that this is... this is a match that recently happened, and I'm blanking on who took it.
Yeah.
But that's a matchup I want to see. I think... That's a matchup I want to see again. I don't remember how the first one went. I'm very interested in that. I'm also very interested to see like Campo versus Clay. I don't know if they're going to get to their trials, but that's a fun one again to see.
Right, because stylistically, I think that's really fun. Campo is playing a very wrestly top game.
Yep.
And
Clay wants to knee bar you to death.
Yes.
That's what she wants to do.
And so like that's an interesting stylistic game to see how that plays out. Yeah.
So that's women's 60, again, Division 8. Super looking forward to that.
Who beats Gabby division.
But essentially, like, it's as much
and
as
it should be. She's earned that. She's earned that, right?
It's like trying to kill the queen division.
Yep.
And everyone's playing. I think
it's doable here, though.
It's doable this year. It would not be surprising to me this year to see it.
Far more doable this year than any of the past 4 ADCCs.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Moving on to the super fight, Gordon Ryan versus Andre Galvao. The only matchup that we know we are absolutely going to see. This is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. We've been talking about this matchup for years and years and years.
So many years.
I really wish...
2016 we've been talking about it.
Maybe
talking about
this.
More
earlier, I think. Earlier we were talking about it overall. But, I really wish that this would have happened in 2019. I think Andre is the best jiu-jitsu player that's ever lived. I would love to see Andre closer to what his prime might be. We don't really know where he's at. He had one MMA
one
fight.
Match. No, he had
a one match in
ONE FC versus De Ridder, and everyone kind of went, oh.
Yeah.
Like, but again, Andre's also a guy will tactically make the right decision. I think in that match, Andre could have gone, I'm actually going to do this as a fake.
Yeah.
I'm going to just win here, never waiting to win.
He could have dropped gears down to just eke out the win so that he did.
Yep.
Didn't knock show off his game some rust.
Didn't show, it could be a playing possum match. It also could be like Andre's 40.
Yeah.
And
he's up there.
30 years of wear and tear doing this sport, and it might not run like
I've been doing this sport for 18 years, and Andre was the guy to beat when I started.
Yeah.
That's the longevity of this dude, and he's been incredible. Gi no gi. These are all things that most people I'm sure anyone that's listening to the show at this point, have
you made it an hour and a half in. Andre's a real motherfucker to beat.
Right. I wish that this match would have happened in 2019 when Andre was closer to what will probably be considered the peak of his career. This might be considered the peak of his career. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, watch him come out. You're like, Andre's still peak. Damn.
Yeah, and then he retires, and then that's that, right? Yeah. Gordon looks unbeatable right now. We talked about this in the plus 99 division.
We say that. I still I can rationalize the Pena match either way.
Sure.
And that's my question under the ADCC rule set.
Right.
What does Gordon look like versus the king of ADCC?
Yeah.
Andre Galvao.
And so
also a big wrench. What does Gordon look like potentially after a division he has to go through?
That's the thing.
question. So it's like, oh, cool. You fight in the finals of your division, and it's like no division final for ADCC has ever been easy.
No.
Like, might have been a quick sub. It might have been, a victory. But, like, it's never been easy to get there and to beat that guy.
Nope, it never
And
has.
then you got to fight Andre Galvao, who's had 2 days of watching it, watching you, looking at that. And now he's got to walk out an hour after you fight in your division and fight you, and that dude's not tired. He's not gassed from 2 days. He didn't have any weight, and Gordon's not going to have any weight to cut for plus 99, but that dude's fresh as he can be and has only been training for you for 2 to 3 years, or 4 years, possibly.
Yeah.
And
he
Gordon,
knew that was the only fight that he would be taking in 3 years.
Yep, and he happened to take 1-1 FC, and, like, Gordon's been training for other shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, if there is ever a scenario to come together that, like, gives Andre a hard edge, possibly,
It's that.
it is this scenario where it's like Gordon has a couple rough matches. Fuck, maybe he doesn't win his division. Yeah. How does he feel then? Then you have to go fight Andre after, you took silver, or man, maybe you got an upset.
Could you imagine Gordon Ryan psychologically handling a loss in his division and then showing up to Andre's match? Mm-hmm. I think for someone
fight Penna again, maybe doesn't go
right. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be whatever the hell happens. Even if Gordon subs everyone in the first minute and a half of his matches all the way to finals, this is going to be an electrifying match.
Yep.
It's going to be the match that we've asked for forever.
It is going to be the story. It will be a story of ADCC 22, and it's exciting because we're finally actually going to get the match. And there again, like with ADCC is a vehicle to tell stories in grappling. No matter what happens on the day, it's like we're going to get or not get great matches, and there will always be what if?
Yeah.
Well, what if Craig doesn't sub Mason Fowler? Well, what if, Gordon can stop the points in Penna in 2019? He does fight Galvao in 2019.
Yep.
What if all of these, questions, what if Kanan doesn't get tapped to lock him by heel? There are all of these questions that you can ask. And like ADCC, every 2 years gives us a story, and it's like, what will the story be for this match? And I'm fucking excited for it.
I hope you don't tell the story because
I can't tell a story for shit, Zach.
It'll take 17 hours.
It will. So that's I'm not a good storyteller, Zach. But 5 years doing a podcast, I got a little better. You should have heard with 2017. It was rough.
So that's what we got. Exciting matches. The matches we're excited about, and little sort of stylistic breakdowns, I guess, for ADCC this year.
So that'll be awesome. That's in
my brain
3
is
weeks.
shot. Let's move on to.
So next week we got Fury FC, Fury Grappling. We have a couple of matches. We have Clay Guida versus Alex Caceres. Should be fun. Clay Guida is going to come out in a singlet.
I always love seeing Clay Guida do anything. Honestly, the man's an animal.
He do Clay Guida stuff. And the Carpenter strikes again. Again, this would be a fun one because Caceres is really, really submission heavy and hunting, and Guida is very much like, I'm gonna come out and show you that I can still wrestle, and that's kind of the guy's game. Like that's what he likes to do and what he's gonna do here. We also have Eric Anders versus Andre Petrosky, 205 UFC guys. Should be fun. Not guys we cover with any. We've never covered before.
Right.
Eric, your boy Anders. Who I love his last name, and he does it just so Bruce Buffer has to say it. Eric, your boy. And just every time I laugh, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. We also have some other fun matchups. We have Andrew Cockle on the card. Ray DeLeon is on the card versus Kevin Dantzler. That should be fun. Madero. We have Sean DeMarco's on the card. There's a bunch of guys that we know locally because this is up in Philly, pretty adjacent to us. So it should be fun, but that's what we got. We also have next week, we have Fight to Win 209. Do not have a headliner for that yet, but that should be Fight
fun.
To Win
is always good to see.
And the Summer Bash 2022 is also coming up, and then Jiu-Jitsu Con is September 1st. So that's going to be, I don't know what happens at Jiu-Jitsu Con. It might be the IBJJF GP, but that got moved.
Yeah.
So it's no longer that. But should be a very, very fun week. Again, ADCC is coming up. Get ready for our coverage to very much ramp towards ADCC, and other stuff tends to, by the way, fall to the wayside because we're doing ADCC prep and coverage. It's the biggest event that we cover. It's the reason why we started the show. So Zach and I are very tired. We had a great. Let's move to the outro section.
Yeah.
I have nothing else. Zach and I had a great time out in Nebraska. Everyone was super friendly. I've never been out to Omaha before, so it was really neat to see that section
family
of the
out
country.
there, so I've been out there a little bit, but not in a while. So it was nice getting back there a little bit. The main reason I was excited to go out there because John's a massive, massive man, and I talk to him on Instagram pretty often, and just seeing pictures of him on Instagram, I was like, I know how big John is, and he looks like a normal-sized human in this room.
West Coast trials, and I was like, John is a head height taller than me. We have a picture. You want to see?
Yeah, we have a picture, and looking at the picture, proportionally, Maine could fit inside John like an Iron Man suit. Like the size of Maine's body is exactly proportional to fit inside of John. And that's the size differential. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so I knew, John's a huge guy. I've met him in person. I know how big he is. He's bigger than I am, which on the East Coast out here where everyone's made small.
What's up, Zach? It's your boy.
I don't have that as often. So I was like, it'd be really cool to go out and train with John in this room of people that make John look like a normal sized human.
3 weeks before ADCC.
Yeah. An incredible time.
I think the technical term is I got my dick pushed in.
Yeah, that was Maine's.
It was a rough room, and it's really the hardest room I've been in since back surgery. And it's like, you have a room of guys prepping a guy for his second ADCC run.
Yeah, and man,
you had
John
world
is
team
training
members in the room
hard.
for UWW, and it was It was wild to see
Olympic judokas in there.
I don't want to blow up what John's training situation is, but. Holy shit.
We're going to hold back until after ADCC is over.
To think about that room exists for 16 people in a division.
Yep.
Like, it makes me realize, like, why the community jumps up so heavy after ADCC. It's like, why? Because, like, you have 98 people in the world that qualify for ADCC. You have your reservists. So you got 110 people. And you have a lot of guys that are, like, training like they're going to ADCC, waiting for the call that might not come.
Yeah.
You have 120 camps that are happening in the world, and maybe a couple of them are combined. So, 100 camps in the world that are just grinding and prepping for this tournament. The jiu-jitsu community isn't that big. The competitive community is even smaller. Like, you have not an insignificant percentage of the community that is ramped going for this thing. On top of that, now, we have the open.
Yep.
That there's 1,000 registrants for. So it's like then you have 1,000 minor camps for guys like prepping, and a lot of those guys are putting together the best rooms that they can to have the best option for success. Our room's doing it. And like ramping up to go and compete at this rule set in this open. It makes sense
so
that
many
like
minds
the level
focused on one thing for so long with so much talent in such a high concentration just changes the sport every 2 years.
Yep. And it's cool. It was cool to be in one of the rooms for like a guy like that to just see like, man, the level here. It's like we cover it every week. Yeah. And we go to events occasionally and see, in person. And I've seen some Matt's side for some amazing matches. And I've talked to some guys right before and interviewed them right after those matches. But to like feel the guys in that room firsthand in that preparation is something that I don't get an opportunity to do a lot, especially before I had back surgery and like could do anything. I spent really the last 3+ years pretty limited for what I could actually go and do. So I spent a lot of time behind a camera.
For me, I've been in those rooms multiple times throughout my career. I always recognize that I am not a world-class jiu-jitsu player. I know that. There's no pride in me when I go up against these guys.
Yeah, we do this show for a reason.
Yeah, I've been in rooms with Andre, and I've been in rooms with Cyborg, and I've been Stipe's training partner for years at a time. That was before, he was still, that's beside the point. I've been in those rooms before. I know what they're like. I know what it's like to show up and roll with someone and not have anything for them. It's been less common for me to show up into a room and anyone in that room be just like, I haven't felt like a white belt in a long time. In a long, long time. And I felt like I wasn't even doing jiu-jitsu against John. The rest of his room, I was like, okay, I can... His training partners, I was like, okay, I can play the game here. I know how to do this. Some of these guys are definitely better than me, but like I can be in this room and not have my ego absolutely crushed. We showed up on Friday. And basically, I just rolled with John for 30 minutes to an hour and did nothing. I did nothing. I did not a single useful piece of jiu-jitsu in that entire hour. And then John was like, hey, you did really good, man. And I felt like how I talk to white belts. It was incredible. It's such a wonderful experience to undergo that, to feel someone that's that skilled.
To be a guy's rest day.
Right? Yeah. It was great.
And that actually was his rest day.
Yeah, that was his rest day. Yeah, it was his rest day.
So look, we have some great footage that's going to come out after. Again, I'm super excited to watch John's run and to be part of that. Hopefully, going to get some film with him
and to show
ADCC.
You guys the experience that we had and what John went through to prep for ADCC and what that room looked like and the things that he was working on at that time, which we're going to keep really close to the chest until everything's over.
Yep.
It'll be exciting to be able to share that all with you guys once ADCC is over and it doesn't hurt his strategy moving into the game at all.
Fuck, I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So I got nothing else this week. Zach, you got anything else?
Nope. I'm ready to go to bed.
I'm ready to take a nap too. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, with the Grappling Rewind.
Zach.
With my host, Zach.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's where we're at. And we'll see you on the mat, wherever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.